Alright guys, Jolliffe here. Let's go over our stat priority for Moonkin rating. First and foremost, you want 17% chance to hit, which equals 1742 rating. Our second most important stat is going to be haste, which reduces the cast time on our nukes and at certain breakpoints gives us more dot ticks. Besides haste, our second best stat is going to be mastery, which increases the damage done while eclipsed, and our worst stat is going to be crit. If you want to reforge to optimal stats, I suggest using the add-on Reforge Lite. You can just punch in the numbers and it'll reforge automatically for you. Now let's move on to gymming. When gymming, you want to have brilliant gems in every red socket and in any blue or yellow socket with less than a 20% int bonus. Now if the blue and yellow socket has a 20 int bonus or higher, you're going to want to use either a reckless or a purified gem, and in our meta we're going to be using the burning shadow spirit diamond. Alright guys, going to be going over the balanced druid talents here. In the first tier of balance we have Nature's Grace, which you want to put 3 points in. It is one of the better talents, increasing your spell haste. Following that, Starlight Wrath, really easy one, reduces the cast time of your nukes. Nature's Majesty increases crit by 4%. We're not really big on crit, but it's a talent you gotta take. Balance of Power increases your damage, but more importantly increases spell hit proportional to the amount of spirit you have. That's pretty huge for us. Genesis increases the duration of your dots by 6 seconds. Euphoria increases the chance to double energy while you're not eclipsed, but more importantly it restores mana when you reach an eclipse. Moonkin Form, that's an easy one. Typhoon, not really needed for rating, has its situations where it can be needed. Shooting Stars makes your Star Search an instant proc, or excuse me, makes a proc on instant cast. Solar Beam, an interrupt, 1 minute cooldown, not that great, still okay to have. Gale Winds increases the damage by Hurricane and Typhoon, and also increases the range of Cyclone. Not huge for rating, but there's not really much other options. Alkin Frenzy, anytime you get damage, it increases your damage done, and you have no spell pushback, which is okay. Force of Nature, really easy. Summon Treants to help DPS. Sunfire changes your Moonfire. Earth and Moon is basically a curse of the elements, which is really nice if you raid 10 men and you don't have a Warlock. Dream State, I picked this up because sometimes if you're solar cleaving, you might have to innervate yourself because you're not getting mana back from getting eclipses. Fungal Growth, this is another personal preference for me. I find on some encounters that having the snare is good and worthwhile. And finally, Starfall, really easy to pick up, great to use while in Lunar Eclipse. Now we go over to Resto tier. First tier, Natural Shapeshifter, reduces the amount of mana when shapeshifting. Heart of the Wild increases intellect by 6%, which is really nice. And finally, over here we have Master Shapeshifter, increases spell damage by 4% in Moonkin Form. That's great. Now we should have 3 talents left over. These are all usually personal preference. You can put them all into Perseverance here to take reduced damage, help your healers out. I personally like 2 points in Feral Swiftness, just in case there's a moment that I need to run around, or if I'm snared, my Stampeding Roar or Dash will remove that snare. Alright, so as you guys can see, it's a relatively simple rotation, but there are some tips and tricks I can give you to increase your DPS. First off, I suggest pre-planting 3 mushrooms where you think the boss will be standing. I'll tell you about this in just a second. When starting with 0 energy and opening with Star Surge, it's going to move you towards Solar Eclipse. And the whole reason we plant the mushrooms beforehand is because Solar Eclipse makes our mushrooms hit harder, being nature damage. One thing you always want to make sure to do is apply Insect Swarm before Moonfire or Sunfire. That's because it'll proc Nature's Grace and give you the added haste bonus. As you notice right there, I waited just about till I was out of solar eclipse to apply those dots. And that's because while eclipse, dots hit a lot harder, especially with high levels of mastery. As I just hit this lunar eclipse here, I popped Starfall for the same reason that I popped mushrooms in solar. The arcane damage is increased while in lunar, and it is going to do more damage. You want to try and maintain 100% dot uptime, but if you're about to hit an eclipse, it's better to wait than to reapply those dots, as the dots are going to be taken harder. You know, this is a single target fight right here, but it remains relatively unchanged when you add in a second target. You want to try and keep 100% dot uptime, and you want to try and get those eclipse dots on the target at all time while rotating through your eclipses. Now, something really important is to pop 2 potions in a fight. Once before you pull when you're in combat, and another time during Bloodlust. And in regards to Bloodlust, this is very huge, and I put it up in writing for a reason. You want to pop your treants before Lust because they get the added benefit of haste. So if you have someone counting it down, you want to pop those treants right before, so they'll do some extra damage for you. While the rotation is pretty easy, it may take some time to get all these intricacies down to second nature. So I suggest practicing some until you can get it down and do this rotation in your sleep. Ah, Solar Cleave, one of my favorite parts about being a Moonkin. You can do insane AoE damage. In fact, we are the AoE champions right now. This rotation is pretty easy when it's just 3 targets. You basically just want to keep all your dots up and try and get those mushrooms down on cooldown. Now, it's okay if you overwrite dots if you have haste procs up, and it's okay to even spam Star Surge in between, but you want to make sure that you stay in that eclipse so you get the bonus to your mushrooms. You will do a ton of damage if you get this down correctly. It's really easy to do, takes a little bit of practice, really easy to do on these target dummies. Alrighty, and the other variation of the Solar Cleave, just with a little bit of more targets this time. On this version, we are going to forego Insect Swarm altogether and just be using Sunfire. Basically the same thing. You want to stay in Lunar Eclipse, keep dots rolling, and blow those shrooms on cooldown. You can spam Star Surge when it procs, and if you have extra time to cast, you can even throw in some Rasp, but you want to make sure not to leave Eclipse. So if you're close to leaving, you can spam Starfire instead. Insane damage here again, guys. Alright you guys, another great utility of the Balanced Druid is Tranquility. If your raid is in trouble and you're taking lots of damage, as you can see, it heals 5 nearby lowest health party or raid members. Because we have so much intellect, it is a great tool to get out of a sticky situation, and I'm going to show you what it can do right now. As you can see, my party with a bunch of people were really low. Some of them are still life tapping because they're a little bit special, but as you can see, they went from almost no health to about half, and that's what it can do. Alright, you guys, another great tool of the druid is the battle res that brings back a dead player with 100% hit points when glyphed. I have it using an add-on so that if I'm targeting this cow right now and I need to res this guy, I can do so without losing my target. As you can see, I just mouse over him, cast the res, and then he is up and I continue DPSing. A great way to maximize your DPS while bringing great tools to the raid. Alright guys, just wanted to go over a basic macro, or actually two macros that I use that can help out in raiding. Say you're DPSing a target in a raid and your buddy dies and you want to res him but you don't want to lose your target for that DPS loss. Well, this macro right here can allow you just to mouse over him, res him, and get back to DPSing right away. And in that macro I have it listed right here. It's just show tooltip rebirth / cast combat mouse over rebirth. Easy, great tool. Another one I have for Force of Nature right here. It's show tooltip Force of Nature, use Force of Nature, and pet attack. What that does is basically if you hit your Force of Nature button twice, your treants are going to go and attack the target that you have selected. So as you can see, they're going to move over to this target to the left. Now the whole reasoning behind this is because if you're DPSing a boss and say he's really low and about to die and you need that extra last ounce of DPS to make that kill, well, if you spawn your treants, you want to make sure that they are attacking the boss and not an ad. So that is a great tool to use for your treants and for your rebirth. Alright you guys, that concludes the rundown of balanced druids in PvE. Now it's your turn to go out and see what you can do. Keep in mind you might not get phenomenal results from the start, so you have to practice in 5-man dungeons, raids, and on target dummies. If you liked my UI, a link will be provided where you can download it, and be sure to tune in and Miss in Pandaria when things change. Take care.